All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and throttle up and get airborne. I am like beyond myself right now with the brief we're going to do this afternoon. This is literally 4 years in the making, a 4 year grind to get from where I was in my life in a pretty bad place to a pretty incredible place, and I couldn't be more thrilled for the presentation, the brief we're going to go through this afternoon. And my special guest I'm going to introduce here after I rip through some of my slides, just to get everybody a level set, because I know we have like 168 people registered, which is absolutely incredible. So let's pay the attorneys real quick and make sure we're cool with the SEC. And it's let me give my a quick whiz rant. A country that's $37 million in debt, right? A government that's $37 million in debt can tell you what you can and can't do with your money. It makes me furious, but I took my microdose this morning and I'll come back to being centered. But anyway, having said that, we have to do all of this stuff, folks. Make sure you do your own due diligence. The CFO is on here. One of the senior advisors is on here. Dr. Mash, you're going to meet in a couple seconds, are on here. You can do your own due diligence, all that type of stuff. And I will remind you, just like in all the options trading we do, how many times do I tell you before I put a position on what the max potential loss is? Before you enter any trade, before you guys see me do this live, before I press fire and fire a trade, I know exactly what my max potential loss is, my max potential profit, all that type of stuff, right? I don't get airborne in anything, folks, until I know the potential risk. So obviously, this is a potential investment. You can lose all of it, every single penny. Now, with that out of the way, we're going to talk about some potential good stuff. But just absolutely, it's on the screen for a couple minutes here now, and I'm doing that for a reason. No guarantee of any financial return. Past performance, not indicative of future results. We're going to talk about some other companies in the space. Just because they're print money doesn't mean we will as well, okay? But everybody, give me a vertical head nod that you understand everything that's going on. Okay, so with that out of the way, we should be good to go. And then Vic just sent me the PowerPoint. So Doc, if you can't pull it up, I'll pull it up for you. Okay, so like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to rip through this because most of you know me and you're tired of hearing from me. But so I am so grateful for this moment. I'm grateful to introduce the woman you're going to meet and her team. Well, everything's a God moment, Wiz, but I was about to say this is a God moment. This really is God putting me together with this woman. And it's like we talked about yesterday, it's kind of a Reese's peanut butter cup with this lady that you're going to meet here in a couple of seconds. For all the new folks, real quick, if you don't know who I am, my name is Matthew Buckley. I'm Matthew to my mom and my wife when I'm in trouble. I'm Wiz to everybody else. I flew the F-18 Hornet for 15 years for the United States Navy. I graduated from the Navy Fighter Weapons School, many of you call Top Gun, and I deployed to Iraq off Lincoln and Kitty Hawk for Operation Southern Watch, and I deployed to Operation Noble Eagle and Enduring Freedom. What's this have to do with psychedelic-assisted therapy, noribogaine, all sorts of stuff? Well, if you don't know my story, let me just give you the Cliff Notes real quick. I was born and raised in South Jersey, South Philadelphia, typical Irish Catholic family. I was an altar boy. You know, we made the Pope look Jewish. It just didn't get any more Catholic than the Buckleys of South Philadelphia and South Jersey. Sadly, my middle sister, Monica, was killed by a drunk driver when she was a freshman at Villanova University. And that was a hand grenade that it went off in the middle of my family. My dad was done. It was brutal. It was a brutal experience. I was sexually abused as a child. Why do I bring this up? Because I carried that trauma into the military, man. And flying fighters for 15 years, I lost 16 brothers to aviation mishaps. It was brutal, man. It was a lot. I've lost 4 F-18 brothers to suicide, including a groomsman in my wedding, Captain Eric Swenson, Swede. Marine F-18 pilot, beautiful bride, 5 kids, decided, you know, he didn't want to be here anymore. Devastating. So I bring that up, man, because it sucked. And then leaving the military and then going into the civilian world. As you all know, I taught myself how to trade. You don't join the Navy to get rich. You join the Navy to see the world and deliver justice to bad guys and girls. Um, so I taught myself how to trade. And after I lost my job on 9/11 with the airlines, I went to Wall Street, man. And I went from a fighter squadron where you trust the men and women in that organization with your life, or they're not in that organization for long. And I went to Wall Street, man. And I was surrounded by people who would push their own mother in front of a bus to make a buck. And it made me physically ill. I made more money than I've ever seen in my life, and it left me as hollow as a human as I could get. I was separated from my God, my bride, my family, my purpose, alcohol, drugs, you name it, man. Trying to fill that void. Um, so, a lot of dark nights of the soul. The reason I'm sitting here today is because just looking at pictures of my children and wondering how sad they would be if I wasn't here kept me around. Well, what happened? In 2020, God takes care of fools, drunks, and sailors. So in 2020, I had a buddy in the White House who said, Wiz, something escaped from a level 4 weapons lab in Wuhan, China. They're digging up the highways around this town. It's coming here. I'm like, I'm not hearing that on the TV. So what did I do? I did outsider trading. I told everybody I thought this thing was coming here. I got banned from Facebook, YouTube, a separate conversation. And what did I do? We made Top Gun Options members made $2.5 million in 3 weeks as the smart money panicked. What's this have to do with anything, Wiz? Well, after making $2.5 million in a couple weeks, that was right around the time Swede had checked out. So I looked at Susie and I said, it'll be easier for a rich man to enter the kingdom of, or a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. So I said, why don't we start a foundation to try and end veteran suicide? And she and I sat there and just threw ideas out. I mean, how do you keep a veteran from killing themselves? Buy him a suit, help him write a resume, pay the rent? I had no clue. And around that time, a buddy of mine said, hey, there's a group of Navy SEALs and special operator veterans that go to Mexico and they do psychedelic assisted therapy. And there's a really cool group going in a couple weeks. Would you want to go? And I said, man, go to Mexico and do drugs with Navy SEALs? Sounds like a great weekend. Man, I had no idea what I was getting into, obviously. As many of you know, I went down to Mexico with Navy SEAL Marcus Luttrell. If you've read the book or seen the movie Lone Survivor, we flew into San Diego. Why? Because if you do what we did, you're a felon in San Diego. If you do it an hour south in northern Mexico, it'll save and change your life. So there we are, man, the unusuals. There's Marcus Luttrell. There's Jared Taylor, one of the founders of Black Rifle Coffee. There's JJ. He's a Top Gun Options member. I'm teaching him how to trade options. He's a teammate with Marcus. And then Robert Gallery. He's a Hawkeye. He was an All-American football player at Iowa. Just got into the College Football Hall of Fame. I rode in the car with him from San Diego to the clinic. I was sitting next to a 6'7" dead human. This was it. Fast forward to today, he started his own foundation. He is a completely different human being. I'll save you the cliff notes, folks. You can go listen to my episode 7 of my podcast. We sat with a medicine called ibogaine, and it saved and changed my life. I don't use those words sparingly or often. I was born again. I was a drinker. I don't know if you can be a good drinker. I was a bad drinker. I couldn't even look at alcohol a year after I sat with ibogaine. It made me ill to smell it or to see somebody. I was like, oh my God, I got my life back. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But let me just share last week, folks, you want to talk about 4 years ago, next week is my anniversary, man. Last week, there's me walking into the VA, and there's me with the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. going from laying on my back in Mexico, getting my ass kicked, 12 to 14-hour experience, to the Veterans Affairs Secretary. This has been a surreal experience. I shared with many of you what happened last week. A couple weeks ago, I had this on my calendar. I had a 100-day point on my calendar. I said, if I haven't heard anything on psychedelics for veterans, I'm going to flame them. And I did. What happened? The VA secretary responded to my flamethrower tweet, sent me a direct message and said, Wiz, I want to do this and I need your help. And I said, man, I'm going to be in DC next week for the Federal Summit on Psychedelic Medicine. He said, stop by. I might be traveling, but please come meet with my heavies. Well, guess what? He was there. He came down in the middle of the meeting. He's like, Wiz, I heard you were in the building. I'm here. And I had a fantastic talk with the secretary. The lady you're about to meet gave me some great talking points, and I laid them right in front of the secretary. And then you guys saw what I saw in the cabinet meeting. I can't remember I'm 56, 57. I haven't seen a single president in my lifetime use the words veteran suicide in a cabinet meeting in front of the nation. And I never saw a VA secretary respond with, hey, there's some good nonprofits out there looking into psychedelics. We're going to look into it. Don't want to go crazy, but I think there's some promise here. Holy crap. Did you see him testify yesterday in the House and the Senate? This guy I am the first secretary that's looking into psychedelics. This was fan-effing-tastic in front of the full committee of oversight hearing, folks. I didn't think I could fall out of my chair more than I have in the past couple weeks. So we are getting there, ladies and gentlemen. This is a work in progress. What you're going to hear about today is just absolutely incredible. But this is the way. So I started the No Fallen Heroes Foundation. We give grants to veterans, first responders, and their families to heal. Venture capitalists, Wall Street, the lady you're about to meet, piling into the space. The lady you're about to meet started the space, but she can tell you about that in a couple minutes. Many of you invested 2 years ago with the REIT, Healing Realty Trust. The guys and gals in HRT said what? Hey, man, when these medicines are legal, you're not going to do MDMA at your doctor's office in like examining room 4 on wax paper with an old National Geographic on the table. The infrastructure doesn't exist. So HRT, I think 25 of you, if my numbers are right, invested in HRT, and you've already quadrupled your money. We might be going public in a year and a half, 2 years. I'd prefer to stay private, but that's a separate conversation. But this was an incredible opportunity that a lot of you still email me to going, I can't believe I missed that. This is going to be another opportunity, folks. That was infrastructure. Today, we're going to talk medicine. And I use that word. I ain't going to use the word drug because it is not a drug. So many of you in Top Gun Options have seen me bring up this pie chart. I love this thing. The psychedelic alpha pie chart. Today, you're going to get the opportunity, baby, to get into a slice of this pie. How many times have I clicked on this thing and we zoom in and we look at the different names? Right here, baby. This is a Where's Waldo. Where are we? We are right up here. And this lady's going to blow you away. I've sat with 5-MeO-DMT. Holy crap, that's a separate conversation. Sat with ibogaine twice. Down here, psilocybin and some other medicines. Not my medicines, folks. I'll be honest with you. Ibogaine, and sadly, it's a little pricey. It was $3,500 for a retreat when I did 4 years ago. It's like $7,500 right now to go down there. I'd love to get every veteran I could ibogaine, but our foundation just doesn't have enough coins. So, okay, I don't want to take too much more time because I'm blown away. But let me, one more time before I introduce our special guest here. I liken this, and you have heard me use this analogy. This is the internet 1999. What do I mean by that? On that pie chart, there's a lot of names, man. There's a Google, there's an Amazon, there's a Netscape, and a pets.com. You pick the right two, you're filthy rich. You pick the wrong two, you're broke, right? So biotech names, any names in the space are obviously a little risky, but man, no risk, no reward. Risk, a lot of risk potential, a lot of reward. So always remember that, okay? So What I want to do right now, man, is take the opportunity. And I'm so glad many of you actually listened to me, which is shocking. And you did your homework. You absolutely, you looked at the podcast that Dr. Mash and I did months ago. Okay. This was worth its weight in gold. So hopefully everybody did that. But so I have at least 3 pages of Deborah's resume, and I had to squeeze them into one for the sake of time. So you're about to meet Dr. Deborah Mash, neuroscientist. First of all, I'm a political science major from South Jersey, South Philadelphia. The fact that she even lets me talk to her is pretty funny. Neuroscientist with over 30 years of research in neuropharmacology, addiction, and brain science. Obviously, the founder and CEO of the company you're going to hear about in a couple minutes called DemeRx. It's a clinical stage biopharma company developing ibogaine and noribogaine. That's so cool. Noribogaine comes from ibogaine. It's in the liver. She's going to tell you about it. But I'm like, man, so you don't have to get your ass kicked for 14 hours to potentially be cured? She can cover that. She is the queen of ibogaine. That's her call sign. I'm Whiz. That's the queen. When I put on my wings of gold in 1993 in Kingsville, Texas, my mom and dad did, she was starting to investigate this compound. So she is the queen of ibogaine. She's one of the only FDA approved trials of ibogaine. Do you know the hurdles this woman had to jump through? DEA, FDA, NIDA, and the licenses to this. She's on a first name basis with all these people. Former professor of neurology, molecular and cellular pharmacology at the University of Miami, the Miller School, man. Say that 20 times fast. Over 150 peer-reviewed articles. Unbelievable. She's an advisor to the NIH and NIDA with decades of federally funded research in addiction. Established the world's largest human brain tissue bank when she and I were talking about potential head trauma and issues with traumatic brain injury in football players and fighter pilots. This was right up her alley. She's been all over CNN, 60 Minutes, PBS, New York Times, and she's just recognized around the world. Right now, Professor Emerita of Neurology and Molecular Cellular Pharmacology at the University of Miami. So, man, I actually had to condense that, which is kind of crazy. So, Deborah, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for helping to save and change my life. I can't be any more thankful to you than I am. So I'm going to give you the flight controls and I'm going to get out of your way and you can take it from here. So let me go ahead and give you all the controls. You should be able to share your screen and turn your camera on and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I am trying to turn my camera on. I think I got that. Let's see. There we go.
There she is.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so grateful to Matthew Whiz Buckley for allowing me to talk to you today and to share with you my personal journey. This has been an amazing time for me. Sharing is not yet turned on. Whiz, if you can do that, that'd be great.
Yep, you bet. There you go.
There we go. All righty. Let's see. I will beam this up momentarily, hopefully. Okay. Why am I not getting it? I'm not sure. Bear with me a minute here, and for some reason I am not sharing. There we go. Now we got it. Very good. Computer technology. Let me know when people can see my screen. Can you all see or no?
Yeah, we're seeing like up a little bit. There we go.
All
now
right.
You just go full screen and we should be good to go.
All right. Slideshow and we're up. All right. Very good. So again, thank you. Sorry for my delay. What we're talking about today and what Wiz discussed in the introduction was, I want you to imagine with me that there was a breakthrough therapeutic for the treatment of alcohol use disorder. Wiz shared with you some of his personal history, which every time I listen to him, it deeply touches my heart because I lost my father and he was 56 years of age same age as Wiz, to his alcohol use disorder. And I was the daddy's girl. He was the love of my life. Brilliant man, hardworking, wonderful father, but white knuckle sobriety. And there was no medication, no treatment option for him. And he died many, many decades ago, or more than 3 decades ago, that I lost my father, more than that, actually. So the problem persists today. And if you look at the numbers in the United States, it's estimated around 30 million people would meet diagnostic criteria for alcohol use disorder, but only less than 5% of those affected actually receive any kind of treatment. And why is that? Because there's no medications available for treatment of alcohol use disorder. The three medicines that are approved by the FDA are not very effective, number one. And number two, most patients have difficulty side effect profiles or don't tolerate them or simply just don't find them to be very effective. And because of that, clinicians don't even prescribe the ones that are used. Our company, DemeRx, is developing an active metabolite of the drug ibogaine, which you elegantly heard described by Wiz. And I had started my work on ibogaine in 30 years ago, to be exact. I actually, as he mentioned, went in front of the FDA in 1993 and went back in 1995 and got permission from the FDA to test ibogaine in the US. But unfortunately, I was unable to fund any academic-based studies. And as everyone on this Zoom knows, drugs are not developed in academic laboratories with NIH funding. They're developed by pharmaceutical companies and biotechs. Undeterred, I started a company with a former colleague of mine to specifically develop ibogaine and noribogaine and to bring it into medical use. So that is our mission at DemeRx. The molecule noribogaine, which was first characterized by me at the University of Miami with my team in the laboratory there, was a discovery that we made when I went to see ibogaine treatments in the 1990s with my own eyes. And seeing is believing. And just as Wiz described, I immediately went to the FDA and told them what I had seen because I was convinced that everyone would want to develop this. The noribogaine, we went back and after we characterized it, we're able to synthesize it. So this is a pharmaceutical lead drug that we actually have now in clinical trials. The molecule has a unique science, and I can answer more about it in question and answer, but to say the message that I want to give you right now is that most drugs that work in the central nervous system, that work in our brains, are not disease-modifying drugs. Noribogaine actually has that ability. It actually treats the underlying disease of addiction in the brain. And that's why, as a neuroscientist and pharmacologist, I have never given up on studying this molecule because there's actually nothing like it that has been described, to my best knowledge, in the pharmaceutical industry. This is a whole new area of emerging science. DemeRx has already done studies in the healthy volunteers, so we've already de-risked the molecule in people. We've completed 3 clinical trials, and we just recently we're going to be reporting top-line results on a multiple ascending dose study. That means we gave the drug every day repeatedly in a pill format so that we would be ready to go into patients. And that data will be reported. We'll be releasing a press release on that in the next 2 months. We hold patents around this molecule. This is very important because many of the ibogaine itself is a drug that comes from Mother Nature, and as such, it has over 100 years of ethnobotany and ethnopharmacology behind it. That's really great news and great information for de-risking our noribogaine program. But the problem here is getting new intellectual property around an old molecule. Noribogaine is what we call a new chemical entity. So we have a robust patent portfolio. And then finally, I'm lucky and I'm joined by individuals who have a considerable experience in actually bringing drugs to market, and more on that in a minute. So, what is the market opportunity for alcohol addiction in the United States today? Well, I mentioned already the number of Americans that are affected, greater than 24 million. Actually, we estimate closer to 29 to 30 million Americans today in our country would meet the diagnosis of alcohol use disorder. The cost to society for addiction in this country is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And this would be all addictions combined. The market size for alcohol use disorder is just shy of $1 billion a year. It's estimated to reach 1.5 billion by 2035. And as you can see, the growth rate is about 7%. The reason that this is expanding is because of not only the growing burden of alcohol use disorder, but also people are seeking treatment. There's greater awareness that there may be medicine out there to help patients. And with all the enthusiasm around the psychedelic medicines and the testimonials by people like Whiz Buckley and others, there is a real increasing demand for these substances now. Mentioning my colleagues that are involved, I just want to point out Mark Ellison. Dr. Ellison actually was part of the launch of nalmefene. He did this with money from DARPA, money from our military to protect our people from a fentanyl crisis. You know, fentanyl is a powerful opioid substance, and if you can imagine that because it's so potent that it could incapacitate people deployed in a military setting, but it also could take out a football field of people. So DARPA, keenly aware of this, put money in, and he just in the last 2 years actually joined DemeRx after he was part of the successful launch at Opiant and then the sale of that company to Indivior. Dr. Doug Kramer was my FDA medical safety officer when I took ibogaine in before the FDA back in the 90s, and he has stayed close to our company and has worked with DemeRx because he is deeply committed and believes in both ibogaine and noribogaine. And John Thomas, who's our CFO, is on this call, and he's been working in this space. He's a seasoned CFO in biotechnology and in the medical device industries, and he's got a personal record of success too. So we're joined by others, but I'm not going to go on from that. So what's my opportunity for you today? What is the opportunity for the investor? What would the valuation be, and what would be our exit? Well, the goal here, of course, would be for us to be acquired by large pharma. And so our business development roadmap is quick to reach a merger and acquisition. We want to reach a liquidity event. Hopefully, if things stay on path, and again, you've already heard the disclaimers, but if things stay on path, that we would be in striking distance within 2 years. Who would be interested in this molecule? Well, there are potential companies that are keeping their eyes out for these new next generation psychedelic medicines, of which noribogaine is. Jazz Pharmaceutical is one, Alkermes you may know of. Otsuka is definitely keeping a watchful eye, as is Pfizer and J&J. But on the right, several that I want to point out for you is GH Research, which of course developed the seizure medication, which comes off the medical marijuana movement. Gilgamesh, who is a direct competitor of ours, but also has somewhat of an expanded portfolio looking at two different pipelines of molecules, one which is close to what we're doing. He struck a cash upfront payment only recently for $100 million with the right to be acquired by AbbVie up to $2 billion upon proof of concept. And proof of concept means completion of a phase 2 clinical trial in patients. So that's part of the use of funds that we're looking to raise today, is to get us to that proof of concept study. And then also named here is Karuna, which you may know that the Karuna molecule was one of only 2 central nervous system molecules approved last year by the FDA. And this was just a blockbuster. Steve Paul, who came out of the National Institute of Mental Health, who actually was an advisor to DemeRx in our earlier stage of our company, was one of the lead people behind Karuna. So we're looking at potential returns, our current valuation in the range of about 36 million, additional dilution of 10 million, valuation upon a successful proof of concept. You see the range there, hundreds of millions up to $1 billion, and rate of return time frame, again, liquidity events. If you want to be conservative, I would like to say 2 to 3 years, but we could also say 4 to 5. So that has the proviso on the forward-looking statements. You've already heard these from Whiz. Again, we know that these are risky studies, but I'd like to open this up now for question and answers. And I do have a few backup slides if there are questions around the science behind the molecule. Whiz, I give it back to you.
Awesome, Doc. I appreciate it. Okay, folks. Well, actually, Rom's got a question, Doc. Is DMX 1001 is synthesized from scratch and not purified from ibogaine? Can you see the questions, Doc? I don't have to read them if you can read them.
I'm going to go into the chat now.
Into the chat, yeah.
Thank you for that question. That is a very important question. And let me restate. The question is, do you have the actual molecule? Yes, we have GMP grade ibogaine. In order to put nor'ibogaine, in order to put nor'ibogaine into patients, it has to be pharmaceutical grade drug substance, and we do have that. Right now, we are manufacturing out of Belgium. We have multi-kilogram lots of the drug substance now, and we will be using that. We have sufficient amounts to be using in our clinical trials. What I'd also like to add to this, and we hold patent, that's an important point also. Part of our patent portfolio is that we have manufacturing. So we have semi-synthetic route to the noribogaine. We also have patented a semi-synthetic route to ibogaine, because ibogaine is part of that synthetic pathway, and that's an important point to make. But we also have worked on fully synthetic routes to the molecule. So that's an important question. From Bruce, what phase trials have you done at this time and are scheduled for additional phases? Thank you. I mentioned the way the pharmaceutical products developed through a regulatory agency, be it FDA, Health Canada, the MHRA, or the European Union, is to go through what are called phase 1, which are safety studies. These are usually done in healthy volunteers, but they can be also done in patients. DemeRx has conducted 4 phase 1 trials, and we just completed what is called the phase 1B study, which is what I referenced quickly, a multiple ascending dose trial, which we will be reporting on our top line drug results. So that is completed. With that data set, we are opening the IND in front of the FDA. We've already had what is called a Type B meeting with the FDA. We've already been in front of them. They're expecting to see our IND come into them with these data, and then we're ready to initiate phase 2. So the phase 2 study will be what is called, again, that's an efficacy trial. Phase 2 is efficacy trial. Proof of concept efficacy study will demonstrate, hopefully, robust endpoints to help people who are in early recovery from alcohol use disorder, to maintain sobriety, to have diminished drinking days. And we'll again be demonstrating that not only do we have robust efficacy endpoints in patients, but also that the drug is safe. That is the phase 2. Are you technically even able to conduct double-blind trials, especially if the side effect is to make you feel a little high? Then the patient always knows that they have the drug and not the sugar pill. This is a very important question. Let's see, that came from Ron. That question, this is about the problem with psychedelic medicine right now. And actually, I'm giving a lecture at the college on the problems of drug dependence, and I'm doing what is called a SWOT analysis on the lessons learned from Lycos with psychedelic medicines. When you take a psychedelic medicine, it's virtually impossible. There are people are debating how you do this, but it's virtually impossible to blind it. Noribogaine is not a psychedelic. Let me say that again. Noribogaine does not have any of the psychoactive effects of ibogaine. So actually, when you see someone who has taken the pill, you can't tell any difference. So noribogaine is an anti-addictive, it is an antidepressant, rapid acting, and it is an anti-anxiety drug. And as I mentioned, it has disease modifying effects on the brain to help heal the addiction circuitry of the brain, but you don't have the trip. When we originally started working with ibogaine, I looked at my colleagues and I said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could allow patients to have the ibogaine journey taken under full medical monitor, but then to be able to follow on with noribogaine in a low dose formulation in a pill patch or a depot to help patients to maintain this window of neuroplasticity and sobriety. Thank you for that question. Michael and I hope I answered that. Michael asked me, is the efficacy of the newly synthesized compound similar to the natural product? Another great question. Okay, so what I didn't show you, because Wiz said to me, not so much science, Dr. Mash. So when you
I
take,
know Doc, my people are making me look like the idiot here, but go,
oh no,
you
no,
keep going.
these are great questions. So when you take ibogaine orally, ibogaine is administered in capsules, and you take it in a rather large dose orally. And when you get to a certain blood level, that's when you have the oniric dreamlike drug experience that was described. But after about several hours, your liver metabolizes ibogaine to the noribogaine. And what we quickly were able to characterize is that when that occurs in the body, the patients will go into a deep phase of cognitive introspection. And then by the evening, they're coming out of it. And the next day, there's no more of the psychedelic journey. So the trip is over, the journey is over, and you're on to the sort of the second stage of the rocket. Well, what we learned is that when you measure the blood on day 2, there's a lot of noribogaine in the blood, and noribogaine has a long half-life. So we immediately were able to demonstrate that the noribogaine is not a psychedelic, but many of the patients would come to me and say, Dr. Mash, what is in me today? I feel great. And what was in their blood on day 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, because yes, noribogaine has a long half-life. And so we were able to measure it over time, is the noribogaine. Next question. Can you please talk about the other competitors in the AUD market space and how is DemeRx better than their offerings? Great question. There aren't too many. The pipeline is somewhat dry, I would say. There was some indication that academic laboratories were looking to develop psilocybin for AUD, and there has been a publication from Michael Bogenschatz on that, again, from an academic group in the United States. There is a development around a group from Novartis that has working on a GABA positive allosteric modulator. GABAergics are like benzos. And for my listeners, that would be like Valium or Xanax. And, again, alcohol, many patients who have a problem with alcohol or misuse alcohol are doing what? They're medicating anxiety. So GABA, that neurotransmitter, is part of that pathway. So they are indeed a competitor. Please look into them. And then the other molecules are that would be directly in competition with us, perhaps, would be the work that's coming out of Gilgamesh. But we're already in patients, and Gilgamesh is preclinical. So I would say those would be the main competitors that are entering into the pipeline. There are also some trials being done with CBD, with cannabidiol, again, as an anxiolytic for alcohol use disorder. Can you please talk about, so that was that one. Would it be fair to say that we are at least 5 to 6 years for the product to go to market launch for insurance to cover? Would they conduct additional trials, research that would delay access to insurance policyholders? That's a great question too. So it would be, I would say 5 years to launch, yes, because remember, we're looking 2 years to complete phase 2. My dream, my prayer is that we would design the phase 2 in a way that would be what we would call a pivotal phase 2. A pivotal phase 2, you get a very robust efficacy endpoint in an area where there's an unmet medical need, and you have open label safety data coming out of the ibogaine movement and the studies that we have and the amalgamated safety database that we have. FDA could give you fast track designation, and you go into phase 3. Phase 3 would be what you need the money from big pharma to launch. And again, the safety database can go anywhere depending on the FDA. And I think our administration, I'm optimistic about what the administration is going to do with the FDA. We're holding on to our seats with this, but I think everyone on this call recognizes that the FDA is atherosclerotic. And I think there's going to be a real push for unmet need, medicines that are needed in our society for veteran and civilian health. And this would fit in that bucket. We could get an accelerated fast track breakthrough. We could easily be 5 years to launch. Again, depending on the size of the safety database and the payers. This is very important. You don't want to develop a drug that the payers are not going to pay for. But again, this is something that would become available for payers because of the unmet need and assuming a robust efficacy endpoint, which carries forward in a phase 3. Pharma will pay for this because of the unmet need and because of the societal cost. Addiction is a family disease. And remember, what I want you to know, you don't remember it, is that noribogaine is not only going to be beneficial for AUD, it's not only going to be used for alcohol, it will also be, we believe, and there are data to support this, that it's going to be beneficial for opioids, cocaine.
Yeah, Doc, I don't like jumping in the middle, but man, I was chomping at the bit to say that. I was a coffee fiend and I couldn't drink coffee for 6 months. We've had veterans with porn addictions, with you name the addiction, it's interrupted with this. So yeah, the answer is yeah. I was going to creep in a little question there on my own and say that. What's the process? Sorry to jump in the middle, guys. What's the process if you find out well, we know it can help other things. Is it a quick, hey, we can copy and paste this for these other things, or do you literally start from scratch?
No, you don't. And that's a very good point. So all of the animal data that you're needed and the chemistry manufacturing control
Hmm.
packages for the FDA or
Yeah,
other regulatory agencies, that all of that data goes in. And
that's awesome.
all of the phase 1 data works,
Okay.
all of the healthy volunteer data. So all of that goes for separate indications. And then you just, that's where big pharma can go fast,
Yeah. Okay.
or
Awesome.
the VA too, if
Sure.
if the VA is motivated to take this on. And let me tell you that as soon as we get the IND open in the United States, I'm going to be back up in front of my colleagues at the NIH and the VA to, get NIDA, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, to fund a study
Yeah.
for opioid use disorder.
Well,
Because
we'll be
now,
joined at the hip, Doc. I'll be your wingman for that.
and I'm counting on it. These questions are really great here, by the way. I'm looking at this. I mentioned large pharma. Have you met with a large pharma, and would they be interested in establishing a partnership? Well, that's why, I have spoken to Indivior. We do get up in front of pharmas, and right now we have a group called Dragonfly 44 who's helping to position us to get ready to speak to the pharmaceutical companies, because you absolutely need to get in front of them early. What Michael's asking us here in the chat is extremely important. You got to have an understanding of what the payers are looking for, and you got to identify your partner early. So we're keenly aware of this, and yes, these discussions are ongoing. What is the projected cost of product manufacture, marketing versus sale price to the AUD patients? How much education needs to be provided to the physicians to promote the market uptake? I cannot tell you today what the product would sell for, what it would look like, but if in terms of marketing and launch, we're very fortunate at DemeRx because Chris Hassan is on my board of directors. And if you look him up on our website, Chris launched buprenorphine. Chris launched Suboxone. Chris ran the largest consortia of methadone treatment providers in the United States, and he is all things addiction medicine. He would be the heir apparent to replace me as CEO. And that's why he's in the wings at DemeRx, because at the right time, I will step down, and Chris Hassan would be a logical choice for this. And Ram, that's an important question that he'd be better to answer. And again, once we get into phase 2, you get a better sense of what the final product is going to look like, what the label's going to look like. And of course, we write the label. We've been writing the label in the target product profile since we began, but it will become more clear with the phase 2. Werner asks, if you compare the standard treatments today with the patented process, what is the difference in cost and duration of a person to become clean of alcohol addiction? Wow. First of all, so the medicines that are approved, what's available today? If you're a severe alcoholic, you may need to go into detox, and they will do a benzodiazepine detox, which will last anywhere from 5 to 7 days, depending on your severity. Obviously, some of you may know that people, severe alcoholics, experience a withdrawal syndrome that can be life-threatening. So our product would be used post-detox. So people who are in, the week after detox for early abstinence. That inpatient stay, if it was out of pocket, is anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 a day. So about $10,000 to $12,000 for a standard inpatient detox or hospital detox. That's phase 1. For the medicines that are approved today, there's only 3 of them. One is naltrexone, which is an opioid antagonist. That is available. It's a very old drug. It's off patent. Alkermes developed a formulation of it, and it's being sold in a depot formulation. Many patients, it does help with binge drinking, but it's not very effective. And they're selling that in a depot formulation. And I think that's anywhere from, it's come down in price, but I think it's about $400 a month for the depot prep. The other is disulfiram, which nobody will take, which is a generic molecule and not very good. And then the other is a camprosate, which is also a generic drug that's sold by Teva. Okay, is this treatment a one-time thing or is it a multiple-day treatment? Yes. Again, Ibogaine, what Wiz described to you is a single dose administration. As for other psychedelics, ours is a daily low dose formulation of noribogaine. So patients could take it every day. And we're also looking at, for the other indications for other addictions, the possibility of novel formulations. And of course, that gives you extra patent fence and it extends your patent protection of your portfolio. So we're very interested in looking at that as well. And that was Jesse's question. Am I at the bottom of that now, Wiz?
Yeah, I think so, Doc. Unless we missed a couple in the middle. If we missed a couple in the middle, just copy and paste real quick. So quick review. I just put the contact info for our CFO, John Thomas. He's a great American in the chat there. Let me kind of bring up this and unpause it. So his contact info is in the chat box. It's a 25,000 minimum investment. That's his email right there. Let me throw you that. And the max of 1.5 if you'd be interested. I know over in the REIT, we got some six-figure folks. I talked to Norm last night. Norm's a great American. He's like, wait, I'll throw 25 at this and maybe scale up from there once you see some of the magic. But, and this isn't our issue, and John can answer these questions. He's a 500-pound head with the stuff. This is, since these are securities, this is all regulated by the SEC. So there's only a certain amount that are allowed at this round, and he can probably answer this better than I can. And then you have to be an accredited investor. So for all the folks who had this opportunity with the REIT and then missed it, and then they went up to the accredited round and then they never looked back, this is your potential opportunity to get in with the DemeRx offer at this 25K round. Again, that's this. A lot of this stuff is Uncle Sam stuff, not us. You know, we like I started. You know, somebody who's $25 billion or what, $37 billion in debt, giving us, telling us what we can and can't do with our money is pretty funny. But any other questions, concerns? Oh, by the ways, I'm glad Doc said that you can actually get the benefits of this without the trip, because sometimes when I sit here and say, or even Morgan Luttrell, Congressman Luttrell, like, oh man, I got my ass kicked, and people are like, oh, being alcoholic sucks. I don't get my ass kicked. No, ain't no ass kicking going on here. This is hey, let's take this, and you don't have to go to Mexico. You're taking this in Kansas, and it can destroy your alcoholism. But man, just one more time from the Whiz Fighter, and we'll get to your question, Greg, in a second. Folks, this saved and changed my life.
Another
I feel
question, Wiz. The questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
By the way, everyone thank you so much for coming today, and thank you for these great questions. This is one of the best set of questions I've ever got, so I love it.
That's
Greg,
my people, Dr. Mash.
I'm telling you,
Testify.
this is a very sophisticated group. All right. Greg asked a very important question. ATI appears to be positioned slightly ahead of DemeRx. Are they competing directly with you? That's a great question. We did an original deal with ATI for Ibogaine and noribogaine, and ATI put some money into DemeRx, but ATI did not fund the noribogaine program. So we took the noribogaine totally into DemeRx, and that's what we're offering you today is the noribogaine program. So no, ATI is not competing with us on noribogaine. ATI has slow-tracked any further development on Ibogaine, which they have rights to do so. And we are still in discussions with ATI about the Ibogaine asset as well. Because as you heard from Wiz, and this really, I can't tell you enough how deeply passionate I am about this drug, because like Wiz, I have so many people that come to me and thank me and are grateful that they got their life back. But imagine that we could take the beneficial effects of ibogaine and administer it in a low dose formulation of noribogaine where you don't need the trip to reach the destination, and patients can maintain a window of sobriety from drugs and alcohol. And that is the dream. That is the dream of the hereafter. That is the blue sky, that we could have a blockbuster drug for the treatment of addiction. Is there a total cap on this raise? Yeah, that's a good question too. We're trying to keep the raise down to keep to keep everyone holding more of the powder before we go to the next more significant raise. So we're looking right now to raise about 5 million in the aggregate.
Yeah, this is John Thomas, and one, I would anticipate that most of you are veterans. So let me first say thank you for your service to the country. And two, Buzz, Wiz may know this, but I was born in Cooper Hospital in Camden, so I'm real close to Southern Philly myself. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
the raise, as Deborah said, this is not a registered offering, and that is why there's a minimum or maximum of 34 investors that we can take in this round, unless you are an accredited investor, and there's certain specifications to qualify for an investor that is accredited. We have packages that have the term sheet, it has a subscription agreement, and then a convertible note. And what the investment is will be into a convertible note, which will convert in the next round of equity that we raise at a 25% discount.
And please don't hesitate to reach out to John and myself. We're available to you. All of you are, through Wiz and the network, are people who are deeply motivated to help address a serious problem in our country for veterans and civilians who suffer from the problems of trauma, and the fact that these drugs and these psychedelic medicines are giving us new molecules and lead molecules, which can be breakthrough therapeutics, are going to do a lot of good. We're mission driven. I'm all in. I'm an investor in DemeRx. My family is an investor in DemeRx, and I'm spending every waking minute that I can to make this dream a reality. And I'm
Doc,
very
I know you're a busy woman. Any chance there's like 3 or 4 that just popped up? We don't
oh
want to take
go.
too much more of your time. So if you want
Go
to
ahead.
wrap those and then we'll wrap, because I know you're like Pitbull, you're Mrs. Worldwide. So I don't want to eat up too much more of your time.
Can you show the investment slide again? Uh, will there be another round if we can't get in by May 23? I could probably do mid-June. Please speak to us, Jason. Um, can you show the investment slide again? We can send the slides around after this call, Wiz.
Yeah, true. Good point.
Let's do
Yeah.
that for everyone. When do you
Well, folks, yeah, actually kill 2 birds with one stone. Just shoot John an email. John's got all the slides and he's got all those questions like, hey, if I can't do it right now, can I do mid-June? He's the man with the plan for all that type of stuff.
That's right. And I feel that anyone here on this call is part of the family, and we'll
Amen.
we'll get you in. Can you get the DemeRx product now? And that's from Norm. No, Norm, you cannot. The only way you can get access to noribogaine is if you take the pro drug, which is the ibogaine.
You have to get the trip for that one, man.
That one is the trip to reach the destination.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's worth it, but yeah. All right, folks, any other, well done, Dr. Mash, exactly. So, folks, any other questions, concerns? Oh, by the ways, real quick, you can throw those in there, but one more time, I'll put John's contact info on the screen. Let's just go back to that slide right there, all that stuff. Take a screenshot, if you will, if you need to do that stuff right there. Just like Deborah, I'm full throttle, and I didn't cover on the disclaimer slide. as soon as I did that podcast with Dr. Mash, I'm like, man, whatever you need from me. So I asked her to be on the board, the advisory board for the foundation. She said, hey, can you be on our advisory board? I said, yeah. So just to be clear, for SEC and Uncle Sam and to pay all the attorneys, I don't get a commission from this. This isn't, I don't get paid as part of this or anything like that. This is me being me. I feel like what was that? The hair club for men commercial. Like I'm not only a member, I'm the president. I use this stuff and it saved and changed my life. So that's why I'm here, is to try and put the ladder down to folks like you all to potentially help save and change the lives of everybody else. And of course, I got a couple in at the last second there, Doc. Any other ones right there? Are you looking for study subjects? That's interesting.
When we go in the United States and we open to the phase 2, yeah, we will be looking for subjects.
Oh, that's
And you can
interesting.
always go to FDA.gov to see when the clinical trial is enrolling and where it's enrolling, where the clinical trial sites will be. I know I
That's
have
very
people,
cool.
I have people who ask me, who say, can I volunteer now? So yeah,
Oh,
and
well,
I
that, I
want to
mean,
give them the drug today, but I can't.
I
So
know. Yeah. I think that's what Norm was asking, weren't you there, Norm? So where last question. Where was phase one done?
yes, Michael, we just completed the multiple ascending dose study at Richmond Pharma in the UK and London. And we also did studies in Canada, and we also ran the early single ascending dose studies in New Zealand. So outside the United States on the first set.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, everybody, let's give a virtual golf clap or a virtual round of applause for Dr. Deborah Mash. One more time, folks. I can't say it enough. I would, you know, can I say this? I probably can. I might not be here, literally, if it wasn't for Dr. Mash, literally blazing a path. When I was blazing off an aircraft carrier, she was blazing a path with these medicines. 4 years later, shaking hands at the VA with some of her talking points in my hand. This is well, everything's a God moment, but this is more of a God moment for me to come full circle. I am honored to be her wingman on this mission, and we are going full throttle. So, Dr. Mash, thank you again for everything, and thank you for saving and changing lives. You're just an incredible human being.
Thank you, Wiz, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. I'm very grateful to you. Thank you for your interest.
Awesome. All right, folks, we're gonna let Doc go. I'm just gonna wrap up and say email the CFO. He's the 500-pound head about all that type of stuff. We'll get you the docs if you need the slides. This was recorded, so we will. I'll get the replay emailed out to you all. Didn't mention it, but yeah, about a week. There might be some onesies and twosies that John can allow in after a certain date. But let's say by close of business next Friday, you're either in it to win it, or we'll see you at the debrief. Or we'll see you ringing the bell on the floor. Did you cover that, Doc? Would you like to go public someday, or is there an acquisition? What puts a smile on your face in 3 to 5 years?
We've of course discussed both. At proof of concept, you're either going to go to an IPO, you would go
Mhm.
public, or you would have your partnership with a pharmaceutical company.
What puts the biggest smile on your face?
I give it to God. I give it to
I love that.
I give it to the board. Um, for me, this is to see every time I think about this, I think about, who I've lost and the people who suffer. So I want it to go fast. Time
Yeah,
is the enemy, the fastest route, but
yeah.
of course, we are considering both.
Awesome. And folks, just a final plug, that clip of RFK Jr. when he was asked about psychedelics and he said, "Man, I'm a recovering heroin addict and alcoholic, and I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard," until my wife sadly checked out in 2012. And then I was going to lose my son too. And my son got on a plane, went to Peru, and when he got off that plane, I knew I had my son back. I have a tweet from former presidential candidate RFK that says, Ibogaine being a Schedule 1 is absurd. He used the word absurd, and I will
Okay.
reschedule it. So this is in the zeitgeist, folks. When I'm walking around D.C., I was with Lieutenant General Jack Bergman, Republican from Michigan last week, and a Democrat from California, Lou Correa. They look like the odd couple. but a red Republican, a blue Democrat saying, hey, Wiz, we got to get this stuff to our veterans. I don't know how many vets I know that have drinking problems and sadly other addiction problems. And Deborah, this is the opportunity to help heal our heroes at home. So thanks again, Deborah, for coming. Dr. Mash for coming. You're an incredible human being. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it, man. I'm going to get the replay posted and emailed out to you. There's your contact info one more time. The CFO is on there. If you super have a big, awesome question or you want to scale up your investment, Dr. Mash has said, you know what, Wiz, I'll make myself available to a couple of those folks if needed. Okay. But we're not gonna pepper the good doctor. All right, Doc, I love you. Thank you for everything you're doing. And ladies and gentlemen, have a great rest of your day. Happy hunting, fights on, and namaste. We'll talk to you guys later. God bless. Cheers.